many concerns and questions over where exactly all this stimulus money will be going. Joining me now is former Congressional Budget Office Director Douglas Holtz-Eakin. Doug, good to see you. I just think about the $2 trillion in pent-up savings, in excess savings for individuals, that schools will, this money to schools, because 90% of what was allocated last year has not been spent. It will be spent going out as far as, I think, 2028. What is the overall impact of this just massive spending plan?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that prior to this, the Congress, the Republicans and Democrats on a bipartisan basis, had done things that were very well timed. They moved when they had to, that were by and large well designed, and which were appropriately scaled. They were as large as they needed to be for the problem. In some cases, that was quite dramatic. But this is anything but that. This is something that's happening when the economy is already recovering. It's going to recover. We're not in a recession. We don't need stimulus. It's not well designed. You can look at the Christmas tree of political priorities, not a response to the COVID vaccine problem. And it is very, very large. This is $2 trillion. It's going to initially flow into places where there is no particular need, whether it's the schools or the states and localities or some individuals who've not missed a day of work. They're then going to stick it in a savings account. They might get bored and decide to stick it into the stock market. So I think the very first thing you'll see from this will be some real impact on asset prices, commodities, houses, equities, and you worry that the fallout of that is financial instability that forces the Fed's hand. That, to me, is the quickest and initial risk. Further down the line, we're going to see big increase in consumer spending and some pressure on prices there. But I don't think that happens for a little while.
The Wall Street Journal today has an op-ed titled "The COVID Welfare State." And if you think of the political motivation of this $2 trillion spending plan on top of the $3 trillion passed last year, it is an expansion of government that could very well be permanent. And so, again, if you're talking about Democrats, control is power. They get into politics for the power. And so how do you ensure that you always have control and power? You create this vast welfare state. And that's really what they're doing. It's the beginning of it in this particular bill.
So, again, you've heard many economists say during the course of the past year, look, if we have to borrow some money to fight the virus and to fight the economic fallout of the virus, that's appropriate. That's not what this is. This is, in many cases, borrowing to set up permanent new programs. Permanent new programs should be paid for. They should be debated on the floor of the House and Senate, paid for with spending cuts or tax increases as the chips may fall. And this is none of that. This is borrowing enormous amounts of money to set up large new welfare, social welfare state programs. And so the social safety net's really expanding here. And that, I think, is an inappropriate thing to do at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm going through the programs, and even the New York Times wrote about it, but it's essentially guaranteed income in the form of the households will now get a fully refundable tax credit for each kid. $3,000 for those up to the age of 17, fully refundable. And so that therein lies, and the earned income tax credit is now applied to people who don't have earnings, who aren't working. That goes against that goes against what it's meant to be. It also expands the subsidy for Obamacare. And so you sweeten that subsidy, and it applies to people who it's an incentive for them not to go back to work.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't complicated. We've been concerned about getting the American labor force back into their jobs. And if you continually stack the deck and make not working more generous than working, that's not going to happen. And we're going to be having a conversation 2 years from now about, gee, why didn't all these people come back into the labor force? Why don't we have the jobs that we had even 2 years ago? And it's going to be because of the expansions in the not working part of the financial benefit. We saw it in the unemployment insurance system. Now we're seeing it more broadly.
This is why President Obama and Vice President Biden's economy never grew at even 3% in any calendar year in the 8 years that Obama was in the White House. There was 99 weeks of unemployment benefits at one point, and you had the haves had more and the have-nots had less, and there was a widening income inequality, and it's because of discouraging people from going back to work and inflating asset prices because of the reliance on the Federal Reserve. It just looks like we're doomed to repeat it again, but in an even worse way.
Well, as I said, I find this very disappointing because to date, you know, Republicans and Democrats did the right thing. They responded to the crisis appropriately. I think every American should have been proud of the actions taken in 2020. This gets 2021 off on the wrong foot and raises some real downside risks.
Yeah, spiking gas prices, and people who are on limited income who have to actually commute to work, not happy. Doug, good to see you. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, always.
Thank you.